Hi guys, this is Emma and today I'm going to be talking about part 12 of Twin Peaks called Let's Rock. I did film a reaction to this episode as well, but I decided not to upload it because my face throughout was just like puzzled and bewildered, and I didn't really have anything to say. Nor could I make a lot of sense of the episode as it was happening. I'm going to start at the beginning with Albert and Cole talking about the Blue Rose cases because I found this a pretty interesting scene. Shocking because the Blue Rose motif has always been a mysterious thing in the Twin Peaks universe, and we got a bit of background as to what the Blue Rose represents, its origin as well. Thinking about this particular scene, I did wonder if the person that Albert referred to as the woman who first died and the Blue Rose cases were coined after her case, I did wonder if it was actually the girl who swallowed the frog moth thing, and maybe she at some point in the future was killed, and maybe the Blue Rose case was named after her and they're all interconnected. Maybe that's a stretch too far, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless, and hearing the Blue Rose cases discussed like this made me think that there's not going to be a season 4 of Twin Peaks. They're giving us the answers to questions that we've had for a long time. And concurrently, I think that they are establishing mysteries that may be not solved in this series because we are quite close to the end now, and I'm getting the feeling that everything is not going to be wrapped up. So whilst we might be getting some answers about what the Blue Rose is and how that originated, we may never get answers to things that have arisen in this series. That's the feeling I'm getting anyway. A couple of things in that scene that I wanted to mention, and the first is that Albert mentioned that the Blue Rose team included himself. He did not mention Sam Stanley because I think that Sam Stanley may have been on the periphery of the Blue Rose cases. They may have decided that Sam wasn't quite on the ball, but certainly he was not referred to as being part of this elite Blue Rose team. I like that Tammy was really eager to join the team and that there was barely any trepidation when it came to her jumping in with both feet. I think that this says a lot about her character and her bravery and her verve and the kind of cases that she is wanting to be involved with. I think that she has realized that she can really get her teeth into these kind of cases. Even though a few episodes ago I wasn't really getting that sense of her, I was getting the feeling that she was kind of new to it all and that she felt a little bit out of her depth. But I think that she's enjoyed being schooled by Gordon Cole. I think she realizes that there's probably a lot to learn that she couldn't learn in school because they mentioned that she was top of her class and very intelligent girl. I think she realizes that getting involved with these guys and the Blue Rose cases is going to take her somewhere that she's never been before, and is going to give her an opportunity that few other people in the FBI can have. I thought it was interesting how Diane came through the red drapes like that. It was quite an entrance. Is it foreshadowing? Is she going to appear in the lodge at some point? Still not totally on board with the theory that Diane is completely evil and she's working with evil Coop. I don't think that we see enough in this episode to make that assumption that she is definitely evil. So next I'm going to talk about Sarah Palmer, because that was a strange scene of her in the supermarket. Clearly she is, I'd go as far to say she's an alcoholic now, and her behaviour in that supermarket bordered on schizophrenic, I think. She seemed to be talking to someone else as if someone was inside her, as if she had a spiritual entity that was living inside her. And because this is Twin Peaks, that's a possibility, right? But certainly this condition could have been caused by grief as well because of what happened to her and her family. When she was looking at the jerky, I wondered if she was thinking about that animal life video that she was watching in an earlier episode where the buffaloes got eaten. I don't even know. I'm sorry, I can't remember quite what happened, but because I didn't want to watch that scene because it was too horrific for me and my taste. But I thought that maybe she was thinking, you know, what a horrible kind of process there is in the world where living creatures end up as bits of beef jerky and turkey jerky up on the walls of a supermarket. Maybe she was singing something else entirely, but she was certainly distracted. When Hawk went to see her at her home, there was something in her kitchen. It made me worry. I wondered if it was the boy from the supermarket who'd gone to the house and maybe she had invited him in. If she was a lonely woman without a family, that's the kind of thing I imagine that she would have done. Just inviting people in to talk to them in a similar way that Harold used to have people come into his home because he couldn't go out. But I think we can theorize a couple of other things about what's happening to Sarah. Has she actually been inhabited by Laura's spirit? Because we saw Laura sucked out of the lodge. We don't know what's happened to her. We know she's missing because Leland said to Cooper, find Laura. Or has Laura come back in some kind of physical form and she's hiding out in her mother's home? Seems very far-fetched, but I guess it's a possibility still. But I think it seemed like Sarah was trying to hide whoever was in the kitchen making that noise, and she certainly didn't want to talk to Hawk about it. She seemed kind of defensive and private. There is a bitterness to her presentation, to her demeanour, that suggests that she's had a very traumatic and difficult life, and she isn't the only one. Let's talk about Audrey now. Very weird way to introduce Audrey. Kind of didn't expect Audrey to actually be in this episode at all, especially when in an earlier scene we saw Frank talking to Ben in his office. Now, in that conversation between Frank and Ben, Audrey's name was never mentioned as her being Richard's mother. There was never any indication that perhaps Frank should be talking to Audrey rather than the grandfather of Richard. It made me think when I was watching that scene that Audrey was dead. I just thought it seemed like Ben had been the one who had brought up Richard, and Ben was responsible for everything that Richard done. At least he seemed to feel that way. The fact that neither of them ever mentioned Audrey, yet she lives, makes me wonder if Audrey is even Richard's mother. I don't see how Richard could be the product of anyone else unless he was brought into the family as an adoptee, perhaps. But it just seems weird. It's just very, very weird. And I also think that when we saw Audrey, her scene felt like it had been tacked on, almost as if they had written the story that Audrey was dead and then they changed their minds and then they just shoved this scene in. So we cut to Audrey's scene really abruptly, and it felt even more abrupt because we never had any mention of Audrey in all the scenes with her family before, and in this particular scene with Ben and Frank earlier on. I was puzzled by Audrey because in that scene, first of all, she doesn't seem to move. She's almost like a mannequin. I don't know why she didn't move, why she doesn't gesture more. She just stands really still, and that made the conversation seem weird, especially because she had so much anger. I just thought it was interesting that she wasn't using her body to communicate with her husband in this scene, and that she was doing it all with her face and her voice. This is not the Audrey Horne I thought that she would become, given that she came from a family of money. She was showing a lot of interest in management and hotel management the last time we saw her. I would have thought that out of all the teenagers in Twin Peaks back in the day, that Audrey might have done the best for herself, especially because she was having a relationship with a very rich man, John Justice Wheeler, and that probably, or at least in my mind, that could have established her kind of taste in men. She seemed to respect herself and to have a lot of confidence. And this Audrey Horne that we've just been introduced to, she seems to have had a very difficult life. She seems to be in a marriage that she doesn't want to be in. The marriage, I would say, is not a glamorous one. I don't know who her husband really is. I think his name is Charlie. He seemed to be, when I first saw him in that scene, I thought he may have been a writer, because he had a lot of inkwells on his desk and a lot of paper, and he seemed to be knee-deep in literature, but I'm not quite sure what his career was. In any case, Audrey was not impressed by him anymore, and whatever love she may have had for him was gone, if she ever had any love in the first place. The way that they talked to each other seemed to be almost as if she'd entered into an agreement with him about their marriage, as if it had been a marriage of convenience. Audrey was very angry, very whiny. She reminded me of Frank's wife. She reminded me a little bit of Beverly when Beverly goes off it at her husband as well. Clearly Audrey is not the only woman in Twin Peaks to be having problems and to have had a difficult past, and I guess this may be part of the whole situation of everyone is under that dark cloud, everyone is under the influence of the evil, the darkness from the Black Lodge and from Evil Coop being out there in the world, and Audrey didn't escape that, unfortunately. In this scene of Audrey, I did feel disappointed because she doesn't seem to have lived up to her potential at all, and the things that she was interested in doing in this scene were petty and almost ridiculous. You know, if that is her life now, if her life is chasing lovers and talking about, you know, fucking this guy and fucking that guy, I just didn't think it made Audrey seem very appealing. I feel like almost like she's let herself down. And if Richard is her son, I can almost see why Richard would be slightly damaged if this is how Audrey has always been, because she just seems so bitter and angry. And on the other hand, maybe Richard's influence on Audrey has caused her to be like this as well. Maybe it's the other way around. I didn't like the way that the husband was treating Audrey, and Audrey was seemingly taking that. It was almost as if Audrey was trapped. I mean, why was she asking? I couldn't understand that either. Why was she asking the husband to go out and find Billy? Like, I kept thinking, is there something wrong with your legs? Is there something wrong with your eyesight? There didn't seem to be. Is she just really reliant on this man to the extent that she can't do anything without him? It was just odd. And I thought that at least if we had an Audrey entrance in Twin Peaks, that it would be a little less weird than this. This portrayal of Audrey did seem very, very Lynchian. So in that scene with Audrey, we heard her mention some characters that we don't know, and there was another scene in the episode in which two women met at the Roadhouse, and they had a conversation as well about a lot of different characters who we didn't know either. We had never met these women before, and we had no idea who they were talking about. I was very kind of perplexed by that scene. Wondered if it was something that we are supposed to be really paying attention to, or whether it's something that's just enhancing the mood of Twin Peaks, letting us see what's going on the periphery of everything. I don't know, it just seems quite late in the series to be introducing new characters. I don't know what relevance they have to the story, if any. Are we seeing people who are going to potentially be victims when it comes to the end game? I don't know where we're heading with scenes like this. I really don't. So that scene with Gordon Cole and the French woman was kind of strange as well. I did enjoy that because it was very artistic, I think, that scene. It felt like Lynch was giving the audience a lot of space to think and to feel and to really absorb everything that was happening in that scene. Mostly on a visual level, I think, but psychologically as well, and intellectually, I should say. This woman was very captivating and beautiful, and I love the way that she played that scene, the actress. We are learning a lot about Gordon Cole, which is interesting because he was a smaller character, I guess, in the original show, but now he feels like one of the major characters. And with each episode, it feels like we're getting to know more about Gordon Cole. Is this just because it's David Lynch and he wanted a bigger role in this, or is it because Gordon Cole is going to play a huge part in the end game? Going back to the scene with Frank and Ben, how did Frank know that Richard had killed a little boy and then assaulted Miriam, was it? Because I guess Miriam was conscious when she was picked up by the medics and taken to the hospital, and she managed to tell Frank who had done this to her, instead of the letter having to be found. Maybe the letter was found after all, or maybe they are going to discover that Chad stole the letter after Miriam recovers and says that she sent the letter. And I guess that Lucy might recall that moment when Chad went and got the mail from the mailman, and that might be the nail in Chad's coffin, hopefully. I just thought that this episode had a really weird pace. It had a different feel than the previous episode, and it felt like a few of the scenes were really random and almost they couldn't figure out how to put them together, couldn't figure out how best to slot them into this puzzle piece of the 18-hour run. We did see another shot of Jerry, which was kind of weird. He seemed to be running away from where he had previously been stuck. I actually thought that was a really nice visual shot of the mountain behind him, and him running out in front on the field. It looked really beautiful and Twin Peaksian. He still seemed fairly out of it. We had another Dr. Amp moment, but it seemed so similar to the times we've seen him before that it was almost forgettable to me what he was saying, and the impact of the Dr. Jacoby podcasts has worn off a little bit, I think. Nadine as well seems to be in the same situation. In fact, I'm not even sure if it's the same podcast or if it's supposed to be a different one and she's just listening every night, drinking her milkshake or whatever she's drinking. I can't tell, and it seemed to be the same scene with him and the golden shovel as well, which was kind of odd because I don't think we needed to see that again. Felt like they were trying to bulk out that episode with this repetition. So ultimately, I didn't like the episode as much as some of the previous episodes. And what stands out to me in that episode was the Audrey scene, just because it felt so very weird and displaced from the rest of the episode, displaced from the rest of the story with the Horn family, actually. It's almost like, as I say, it felt like that scene had just been added at the last moment and that they had been going on a different trajectory I can't say that, trajectory with the Audrey Horn storyline, perhaps. I don't know the behind the scenes stuff, but I think that Sherilyn Fenn was a little bit odd in regards to her response to being on the show. I don't think she was fully embracing what role she had been given. And I'm really curious about how she met her husband, Charlie, what made her fall in love with him, and how their relationship soured. Anyway, I think we only have 6 episodes left. I think that the last episode may be a longer one. I'm not quite sure about that, but I do get the feeling that not everything is going to be tied up, and as I said earlier, I think that whilst we get answers like what is the blue rose, I also think they are going to leave us with some mysteries. I just don't see how everything can be tied in, especially when we have so many different branches to the story now. We're getting new scenes every episode, it seems, of different characters who we have never met before, and we are expected to remember who they are and remember what's going on. We didn't even get much of Cooper in this episode. We got like a very short scene of him with Sonny Jim playing ball. It just seems so random as well, like 2-second snippet of good Coop. And Hutch as well with Chantal shooting the warden. But yeah, we spent so little time on some scenes that it was difficult to remember that all of the scenes had played out at the end of the episode. I didn't love this episode, in all honesty, and it's not one that I would particularly remember except for the Audrey scene. That's the only scene I think that would make me remember what this episode was. But I hope you all liked it, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You can subscribe to the channel if you like David Lynch or Twin Peaks, and I will see you again soon. Bye!